What if sex was never meant to be confusing, just beautifully designed? Welcome to Sex Rebranded, the podcast that cuts through the noise with bold biblical conversations about sex, marriage, and holistic health. You'll hear the candid perspective of a true newlywed, gain practical wisdom from a mom of 3 young kids, and insight from a doctorally prepared nurse and menopause champion herself. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. My name is Caroline, and I have my mom Kelly on today, and we are going to be talking about lifestyle medicine. Mom, why are we talking about lifestyle medicine?
Well, first of all, let's tell the audience what it is. So, what in the world is lifestyle medicine? We know that it is evidence-based, which for this nurse is important. So, we know that this is science and actually evidence-based. It's a medical specialty that applies the principles of true lifestyle interventions, the way we eat, the way we sleep, the way we move, our relationships, and avoiding risky substances, applies those interventions to prevent, reverse chronic disease. So it actually can prevent and reverse chronic diseases like cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. We think it's really important because there are so many connections, of course, with relationships, but also with healthy sex. So that's why we have included lifestyle medicine. And I'm a nurse by trade, and I studied resiliency for my doctorate. Actually studied nurses and studied their retention level and how resiliency affects their staying power.
Yeah, so if you haven't heard, lifestyle medicine is something that we are incorporating into our book. And we have dedicated a whole chapter on it, breaking down each pillar. It is split up into 6 different pillars. And so, chapter 2 of our book, we talk about each one of those pillars, and we try to give a few just very practical things that you could easily implement in your life. And at the end of the chapter, we really want you to think back on what you've read and just pick one thing that you can start doing to improve your health, because it's kind of unrealistic to adopt all of these principles all at the same time and do it perfectly. And so that's never the expectation. We talk a lot about 1% increments of growth. And so that's why we encourage the readers at the end to just think of one thing that they could do and one change that they could make. Okay, so with that in mind, let's try to recap what all of the pillars are. So we have nutrition, and then physical activity or like exercise,
managing stress,
sleep,
social connection and relationships, restorative sleep, and avoiding risky substances.
So those are the 6 pillars.
It's not just the obvious. It's not just don't do drugs. So risky behaviors and habits is also included in that, which would be like sedentary lifestyle. So get off your booty is part of that.
Yeah, so that's why we wanted to just kind of give an overview of what lifestyle medicine is and why it's important to us. And this will be a shorter episode, but I just wanted to ask the question, what is one thing or one pillar that you have felt like you've improved or that you've made improvements on this past year in your health, and what were the steps that you kind of took to make those improvements? And if you have any like practical habits to share, like let us know what you implemented.
So mine area that I've made the most improvement on kind of has, you know how I said they're interconnected. So the pillars are all interconnected. So managing stress is definitely the pillar that I have made the most improvement in this year. And the most practical thing that's helped me with this is habit stacking. Let me explain. Part of my bedtime routine includes me taking a bath and then I listen to Lectio 365, which is a meditation app. If you if you haven't downloaded it, it's wonderful. I think we can provide the link for that for you. So listening to Lectio Divino and then doing my deep abdominal breathing and breathing meditation and breathing exercises all at the same time. So I get the restorative sleep portion of that for my nighttime routine. And then I get the breathing exercises and the meditation, thirdly, for managing stress. And that has been very practical and something that I can do every day that's made a huge difference. And speaking of the everyday making a huge difference, did you know that lifestyle medicine affects 80% of our outcomes? They're thinking like 80 to 90%. And 80 to 90% of the possibilities of preventing disease like cardiovascular disease. So when you ask why, it's because it's a huge, huge percentage of bang for your buck that we can educate and that we can have women at all stages of their life gain positive outcomes that
So
affect their relationships.
does that mean that the other 10-20% is things like your genetics?
Well, but also medicine, so medical care.
Mm.
So, this 80 to 90% are things that we can have control over without anyone's help. It's the way we eat, the way we move, the way we mitigate stress. All of those things have a huge um, impact.
Mhm.
What about you? What pillar have you most improved in, Caroline?
I definitely have to say sleep, restorative sleep. So in college, I'm a senior in college, but my first 3 years of college, I did not have anything close to a sleep schedule or like a sleep routine. And probably my biggest piece of advice that I wish that I would have done my first 3 years would have been, because a lot of social things happen in college, and most of them happen late at night. And so I wouldn't say to be such a stickler on your bedtime to like miss out on hanging out with friends. But I would say don't waste your time that you could be sleeping from scrolling on your phone. And I know I did that way too much. So it doesn't matter if you get home from hanging out with your friends at 9:30 or 12:30. Like, don't sacrifice that time with them. Just make it a habit to whenever you get back and start getting ready for bed to put your phone on do not disturb and set your alarm and then put it out of arm's reach. Don't keep it right next to you in bed so you're not tempted to scroll on social media, because doing that for like 30 minutes, an hour each night, then you are like sacrificing sleep, but not for a good reason. And so that's the best piece of advice I would give for college or whenever you're just not really able to have a sleep schedule. But my senior year, and really since I got married, I've had a much more solid sleep schedule and going to sleep at like 10 p.m., waking up at 6:30, and that has helped a lot.
Since you've been married, what are the I guess restorative sleep habits that is there any practical tip that you can give people for newlyweds of things that you can start doing?
Yeah, so this is, I mean, I've kind of already talked about it a little bit, but just technology. And so our room is really a technology-free space. We don't have a TV and we don't bring our phones into our room. We keep them charging in our bathroom. And so if you need an alarm, get an alarm clock. They're like $10 on Amazon and it works just as well as your phone. Yeah, so technology is a big one, and it was easier to implement that after getting married because one of the big reason why I was on my phone late at night is because I was texting Kaden when I probably should have just been like, okay, when you drop me off, like that's when we say goodbye and good night in
Aw.
person, and then we don't talk to each other until the next day. But we didn't really do that. That's okay. But when you're married, you're going to bed with each other. And so it's easy to get into the habit of not bringing your phone into bed and like scrolling before going to sleep. And then, I mean, that helps with like the social connectiveness pillar too, because like if even if you're in the same room as someone doesn't mean that you're spending time with them. And so if we brought our phones to bed with us and we're just like scrolling on social media, then like that's time that you could be talking about your day with your spouse, but instead you're scrolling. And so that's something that I would recommend all newlyweds to try to get into the habit of, because you can keep yourself accountable too. And it's already such a big change going from like living on your own to living with someone. And so it's the perfect time to make those changes and to add those better habits.
I love that. And then if you're still in college, I think about like what could replace the scrolling. And so I know I do my meditation and breathing when I'm in the bathtub as part of my routine, but you can do that breathing anywhere. You could do your breathing instead of scrolling, you can do your breathing that physically changes your heart rate and your blood pressure. And just try it. Just try it. You just don't know the effect of it to prepare your body for sleep until you've done it. It is effective. And so I would just say that find something that you can do as a part of a habit and routine to replace the scrolling so that you're not just, it's like what do you if I tell you, "Hey Caroline, don't think about the white elephant." What are you going to be thinking about? You know?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be thinking about the white elephant. So if you can give your mind a different focus and a healthier habit to take that place, I think that would be helpful if you don't have a husband next to you.
Exactly. So, just to remind our listeners that we are not perfect and we do not do all of these things perfectly. What is one pillar, and this will be to close, but what is one pillar that you are wanting to make improvements on to improve your health?
So definitely for me, probably that would be the physical activity because I am got my bar class, my weightlifting class that I've been doing, but I want to be doing that. I need to increase my weight training by probably about 45 minutes weekly. And then I need to increase my cardiovascular. For me, it's just I'm doing it in little chunks of time, but I need to increase my time for the cardiovascular and the strength training because my estrogen has dropped at this point and I'm losing muscle mass and bone density. So I've got to, really kick it into high gear, lifting heavy things. So that's what I'm currently working on. And I'm not, you know, it's kind of like for years, I tried to read through the Bible and I was like, I'm going to, in January, I'm going to start in Genesis and I'm going to read so many minutes every day. And then I would get to like day 20, 21 or whatever it was, and I would miss a day and I would get so discouraged. So I'd say, I'm lousy at this. And then I would just like quit until I realized that this is like, if you missed a meal, would you, the next day, would you miss the meal? If you didn't eat all day the day before, So, and it doesn't matter if I'm in the word for 10 minutes a day versus 29 or 4 minutes, right? So just doing the next right thing and progressing in these 1% increments of change. Long term, it's going to make a huge difference. And don't get discouraged. So if you're in a season of life and you can only work on your stress management, or you're eating a little healthier and eating more whole foods, great.
Mhm.
What are you working on currently?
Well, also trying to to get better about working out and exercising. And so my goal is to go to the gym 2 times a week, but that's kind of a newer goal of mine. And then the other one is probably stress management. It's not something that I'm super great at, but I've especially realized how I need to start working on it after getting like a client this semester and with school kind of picking up and just with all of the things that I'm doing that I've never done before and I'm learning so much. It's really easy to be super hard on myself. So just practicing not getting caught up on what I thought I did wrong during a session or like whenever, and instead thinking of things that I'm learning or that I did a good job of and would want to like try to do again. And so just kind of reframing some negative thoughts is what I'm trying to practice. And then also being okay with accepting like what I would consider negative feedback as just a learning opportunity.
So important. And in college, there's, managing stress is so important, especially I feel like at the University of Tulsa, there's so many extremely smart students and, that are achievers and, want to do things at the level of perfection. The reality is you have got to manage your stress and you cannot be successful without that. And how the pillars are so interconnected, like if you don't get restorative night of sleep and you sleep 2 hours, do you think you're going to be able to manage your stress the next day? Absolutely not. So they are dependent on one another. No little habit, every habit's going to affect the other pillars. So if you could do those little bitty 1% changes, they'll make a big difference.
Exactly. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. If you have any questions about anything related to lifestyle medicine or something that you want us to talk about on the podcast, don't forget to email us. We hope you guys have a great day. Bye. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Sex Rebranded. If you have a question you want answered or a topic you want to be talked about on the podcast, send us an email at sexrebranded@gmail.com.